Hey, if you've seen some of my videos, you probably know I talk quite a bit about gardening and food forests and reinventing agriculture, if you do it yourself projects and just whatever happens to be going on. And I talk a lot about history, and that even goes into the name of our channel here. Um, Ancient Whispers Ranch, because we listen to the past. And those ancient whispers, calling from the past, they had a lot of great knowledge, and a lot of it's lost. I think it's worth exploring and revisiting some of these things and see if we can't put some of that into place into our modern gardens. And it is Celtic gardens, or Celtic. I may be pronouncing it wrong either way, not quite sure. I'm reading this stuff, and so it can be a little bit, how it sounds in my head's how I'm going to say it. So forgive me for that. But this is super interesting with the Celt gardens, because they had an attunement with nature. They basically were just transitioning from that hunter-gatherer into a more agricultural type people. And so they really were some really, really, really good food forest people. And there's a lot of lessons to learn there. That's kind of how we pattern and things here at the ranch, is it with the food forest type approach. And the Celts, the Celts, they nailed it. They had it down. Let's get right into it. Some of the secrets of the Celts. We journey back in time to explore the fascinating world of the ancient Celt peoples. We're going to focus especially on their agriculture, the plants they relied on, and how this ties into their broader cultural identity. The Celts, not a single unified nation, but they were a collection of tribes spread across much of Iron Age Europe. And around their peak, 500 BC, Celtic tribes could be found from what is now Ireland, Britain, to the continent in France, and Spain, Austria, Germany, and even found their way into parts of Turkey. Despite this wide distribution, they shared linguistic roots, artistic styles, religious beliefs, and importantly, agricultural practices. You see, agriculture was at the heart of Celtic life. Their societies were primarily rural, built around small farming communities. Celts understood the land deeply, and their survival depended on their ability to work in harmony with nature. Their farming methods were surprisingly sophisticated for their time. They practiced crop rotation, and they built these rigid fields that are sometimes called Celtic fields. And it improved drainage and soil fertility. The staple crop of the Celts were what you would expect from an Iron Age European society. Grains like wheat, barley, oats, and rye. And barley was extra special, not just for food, but also for brewing beer. And we can appreciate that. Who doesn't like a nice beer once in a while? And it held special social and ritual significance. They also grew legumes like peas and beans. And those are nitrogen fixing plants, and that helps build the soil. In addition to the grains and root crops played an important role in Celtic diet. One of the most significant was the turnip, the humble turnip. And this predates the introduction of potatoes by well over 1,000 years. Turnips are tough and hardy. They can be stored through a long, cold winter and were used in stews, broths, or even roasted. Other native root vegetables like wild carrots and parsnips
were also a big part of their diet. Although those were probably less sweet and uniform than our modern varieties, these roots provided essential calories during those cold winter months, and they were often cooked with grains or wild greens. The Celts were also skilled gatherers, and they had an extensive knowledge of native plants. They used the wild herbs for both cooking and medicine. Plants like yarrow, nettle, meadowsweet, and chamomile were used to treat wounds, reduce fevers, or soothe pain. That parasitic plant mistletoe, especially when it was found growing on an oak tree, it held a sacred status and was used in religious rituals for the Celts. There was no firm boundary between agriculture and medicine and spirituality. Plants were all the divine cycle of life. They also grew flax for linen and used plants like woad to produce those iconic blue paint for body decorations that some warriors wore into battle. Apples, berries, and nuts were foraged seasonally and were part of both diet and myth, appearing in countless Celtic legends as symbols of knowledge, otherworldly journeys, and sacredness of nature. Celtic culture placed immense value on the natural world. The land, rivers, trees, and even specific plants were believed to have spirits. Druids, the religious leaders of the Celts, acted as intermediaries between humans and these natural forces. Seasonal festivals marked agricultural milestones, celebrating planting, harvest, and changing of seasons. These festivals helped align the community with the rhythms of the earth. The ancient Celts were widespread, diverse, and deeply connected to the land they inhabited. Their agricultural practices weren't just about survival. They were woven into their myths, medicine, and sense of by the sacred. By cultivating the land and honoring its cycles, the Celts left behind a legacy that still echoes in the folk tradition and landscapes of the world. Thank you, and join me for the next video.